Good morning, Jean. Hope you're okay. Hi, Linda. Good morning to you. Hi, Tom. My email, I'll type it in for you, is richard.harrison@roehamptonclub.co.uk. Alrighty, sorry I'm a bit late this morning, everybody. Alrighty. Sorry, Helen, I was a little late this morning. We had a team meeting with the management of the club discussing what happens and when what happens. So I was a little bit late prepping up for this. Obviously, the club wants to get back to normal Sunday. And that's all relative to the statement from the government on Sunday. And the club have put in a load of measures to obviously open properly. But it won't be like normal. The limited spacing on the golf course and limited tee times, but there'll be plenty of opportunity to play for all members. We just have to plan it under social distancing and the volume of people rules, really. All right, so I'll give it a couple more minutes. Sorry I'm late this morning. It's entirely my fault. And then give it a couple more minutes, and we're going to talk about fairway woods and rescue woods today, how we work those clubs. And we're working inside today, ladies, because of the interference from the audio. I just tried it outside earlier, and it was quite rattly. Hi, Mary. Hi, Les. Hope you're both okay. Thanks for tuning in. Alrighty, well, a very warm welcome to everybody. Hope you're all okay. We're inside today because of the wind interference on the audio. It gets very, very blowy. I did a session for the soldiers last week, and I started outside, and then one of them typed in, "It sounds like a blooming hurricane, a Vulcan bomber taking off." So we came back inside. And because it's all sort of, I'm not professionally set up for all this, I'm just doing it via my laptop. The interference in the audio is very, very high. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks for all your questions as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about fairway woods today, which ones to use and when to use them, and also your rescue woods and what the difference is between them, and also some very common things that we see that you should all be working on when you're working with your fairway woods, what the actual purpose of them all is. I've also had a question typed in from Barbara Hayes Barbara Lord, asking me to talk about sloping lies. So we're going to cover a bit of that as well today. Any questions about the session, just type it in and I will cover it for you. But plenty of time today. And again, many apologies for being late. Alrighty, so I'm going to start off first of all by showing you a great video from Annika Sorenstam, who is without doubt the best European player, I think, ever produced, and possibly the best in the world. Dominated the game, and again, like all the top players, they made it all look so simple. I mean, Annika's swing is very uncomplicated. Her attitude to the game is very uncomplicated. For the best player in the world, when she was, for as long as she was, she seemed to have a very, very limited amount of ego, albeit an incredibly fierce competitor and an extremely successful one. And the video I'm going to show you here is just a minute long, and it's her talking about what's in her golf bag, the makeup of her set, and that's going to be the start of how we format today's session on what clubs we have in our bag and why we have them.
Hi, this is Annika, and this is what's in my bag. I got 4 wedges, 58 degree, 54 degree, and a 48, and of course my pitching wedge here. I got Callaway Apex iron. The longest iron I have is number 5. I have 4 woods, as you can see, 4 head covers, 2 hybrids, 23 degrees, 16 degree, which is a 4 wood, and a 3 hybrid. Got a 3 wood here, and of course the driver, the Big Bertha, and then this one. We drive for show, you know, but we putt for dough, the Odyssey. But then the last thing I got, when you practice, you got to make sure you practice well and efficient. I got a baseball glove. You never know what you find in a player's bag.
Yeah, I think it's fabulous that, you know, not that long ago we struggled to find out what was in the players' bags. We'd have to do so much research, or someone would have been to an event and seen or heard a whisper from a caddy. But now, of course, we see it all in a 60-second video. So just to explain why she has the baseball catcher's mitt in her bag, many of the pros practice with their caddy way out on the range. They'll hit the balls to the caddy, not quite a static or a moving target, but the caddy will then catch the balls in their glove. And when the players are really on song, the catcher, the caddy, isn't moving very far and catching the balls high, low, left and right. And I was very fortunate. I grew up in Lytham St Anne's, and my school backs onto Royal Lytham and St Anne's Golf Club. So, of course, we'd caddy there, we'd watch the golf, and we'd all play there as well. But the players would come and use our playing fields at the back of our school, the school playing fields, rugby pitches, cricket pitches, football pitches, and hit balls. And oftentimes when the Open came to town, you would see the pros in various parts of either using the beach, because we're right on the coast there, or using the various parks and school playing fields just to hit balls. So it wasn't uncommon that to see. So that's why she has the baseball pitcher's mitt in her catcher's mitt in her bag. Alrighty, so if I must tell you a very quick anecdote about that. This happened at Wentworth, and I got told this story by a tour professional. And Hale Irwin in the 70s, one of the best players in the world, and he was stood on the range, and he was hitting balls to his caddy, who was catching the balls in the mitt. And of course, the caddy wasn't moving very far because he was probably the most dominant player for that season. And he is hitting balls, and other pros start to come and watch him practicing. He starts showing off, hitting high ones, low ones, curving the ball, curving it with height, putting bend on the ball, and setting them off low to start and then go high. So really showing off to his compatriots about how good his ball flight control was at the time. And the tour pro told me that Hale Irwin was, walked off the range straight to the first tee, stood on the first tee and hooked it left out of bounds. Now, if you played Wentworth, hooking it left out of bounds, that's a big old hook. Now, that is not a gentle draw on the wind. That's a proper hook. So it just showed you hubris can happen to the world's best players, and it just shows you that the game is a very, very difficult place. Okay, so let's look at Annika's bag then. She started off with her wedges. She said she had 4 wedges. And I think her bag is broken down to very, very distinct categories for her mind's eye. And a bit like I was saying about Jack Nicklaus, how organised these players are, not just physically, but also mentally. So she has 4 wedges, 4 irons, and 4 woods. 5 irons, beg your pardon. 4 woods, start again. 4 wedges, 5 irons, 4 woods, and her putter. Now, what I can tell you, the research has shown, that video is 3 years old, the research has shown many, many times that the drive for show and putt for dough is completely unprovable scientifically, because if Annika was to hit your drivers for you, she'd put you 280 yards down the middle of the fairway all the time. Now imagine doing that. If she was hitting the driver for you, every hole becomes a lot shorter and you're dead centre of the fairway. If she was doing the putting for you, you've already hit your fairway shots, your shots out the rough, or you might have made a mistake on the way to the green. She won't save you that many shots. It's been proven at every level. If the world's best players teed off for us as club golfers, then they would save us twice as many shots as if they did the putting for us. Because by the time we get to the green, all the damage has been done from their point of view. So we have to get the woods working well, particularly as lady golfers around Roehampton. Because if you look at the length of the ladies' course here, I think it's a very long ladies' golf course. And I don't think there's much difference between most of the tees from the very back where the championship tees would be played for the men and where the ladies' tees are. There's just not enough difference there compared to the loss of distance that ladies have against the average male golfer. So you can see her bag is heavy on the woods. Tiger's bag at the most will have 3 woods in, possibly sometimes just 2. And so what that tells you is that Annika's bag is very heavy with woods, 4 woods in there, because she needs as much power as possible. So, of course, the driver is our indiscriminate distance club. And I'm just going to start out with a couple of stats on the driver. My normal drive, I'm going to show you the screen in a second. My normal drive should go around about 280 yards. Okay, well that's pretty reasonable. Once I get warmed up, and it'll get better than this. But let me show you here. So I've just got the 5 data panels here. I swung at 102.5 miles an hour. I'm normally a bit higher than that. Ball speed is very high, and this is the critical part about today. However quickly I swing the club has to transfer to the ball. There's no point swinging at that speed if the ball's going to leave at 60 miles an hour. It means it's a missed strike. I carried the ball 254 yards, and it rolled another 18 yards there. So if I then try and hit a driver without a tee peg, that, of course, should compromise the quality of my strike. It will then lose me an awful lot of distance. Let's have a look. Okay, so remember, 102 miles an hour gave me 150 ball speed. Carried 254 with 18 yards of roll. So no tee peg now. Just need to re-hit that one. Didn't quite catch that one, barely. Okay. Okay, this will illustrate the point. So my club speed before was 102, and in fairness, I'm very close to that. My ball speed has lost 4 miles an hour, but I've lost 30 yards of carry. But look what happens, of course, because I've hit the ball very low. I actually got 37 yards of roll on that, which is ridiculous. I don't want that much roll on the ball. So I've lost an awful lot of distance. I've lost ball speed off exactly the same club speed. So this will lead us in now to how we understand how 3 woods and 5 woods will work best in your bag, or if it's worth having them at all. So when I have the driver off a tee peg, it sits up here, and that huge head sits all the way underneath the ball. So whatever strike I make, it's going to come off the higher part of the club, and that ball will then elevate. Now, if you look at a very powerful flight of a golf ball, it always has elevation. And this is why most lady golfers shouldn't have a 3 wood in their bag, unless they're very high hitters of the ball or they're very powerful hitters of the ball. Because a driver, which has, let's say, 10 degrees in my bag, it should have about 12, 13, or 14 degrees in your bag. It needs a very high tee peg to elevate. Because when I don't have the tee peg, you'll see there that I lost 35 yards of flight on the ball, which is massive. And the reason for that, without the tee peg, is the strike comes from too low in the face. No matter what I do, I can't get this huge club head under the ball if the ball sits on the ground. Whoops. Right there. And so it's going to hit from this low part of the face. Now, if we look at the design of a club, it isn't flat. It has a bulge this way, and it has a roll this way. So the lower we hit on the face down here, the lower that ball is going to fly. So that's the most obvious club to look at in terms of why you wouldn't hit it off the ground at all. But then I'm going to get my 3 wood here, or a 3 wood. Let me show you. So a 3 wood here, again, from a bull's eye view. Again, look at that. If that ball sits flush on the ground and that club follows suit, then the ball is still on the lower part of the roll on the face. Look at it, you can see it's not a totally flat face, is it? And so if that ball's going to be hit from here, it's going to come out low all the time. Now, I recommend in every lady member's bag, Your driver is indiscriminate distance and it should have some launch on it and plenty of roll as well. A 3-wood is only worthwhile if you're going to get lots and lots of run on the ball, but strike it properly. So this is why for most lady golf, I say don't use a 3-wood. I'd rather you have a 5-wood, a 7-wood, and a 9-wood, or a 5-7, some rescue woods in the bag. I want to talk about the technique in a second. First of all, we're going to talk about the format of your bag. So a 3-wood simply doesn't have enough face angle to elevate it properly. Now, what we do know is, let's say you had 50 shots with a 3-wood. One of them might go a long, long way, but the main body of shots simply won't go as far as your 5-wood, and that's why we ditched the 3-wood in favor of the 5-wood. Now, a 5-wood has about 5 degrees more loft on it, and all of a sudden now, things start to look a little friendlier. You can see now that the bottom angle there actually sits underneath the ball there. And now you've got a good chance of a strike from the center of the face. And this lady's 5-wood here, which has 19 degrees of face angle, that club's going to slip underneath with most strikes, and that ball's going to launch up in the air with 19 degrees of face angle. Now, for most lady golfers, a 19-degree club should give you some height. If it comes out a bit low, then you definitely shouldn't be using the 3, which should definitely be just using the 5-wood in your bag. If we then look at another feature of the club, I'll just take that price label off. You can see how the club is rounded on its sole. And this is how we start getting to understanding how the clubs have been designed to optimize quality of strike. So the sole of the club there is actually designed to help the club slide along the ground. Now, in previous videos, you've heard me talk about not taking much of a divot, not getting a really thick contact with the ground. So what we're looking for with a 5-wood, probably your most important wood in your bag after the driver, is the shape of this club is designed to slide along the ground like this. Now, the way you should think about your swing, and then you form an arc by rotating the body backwards and forwards, and your arms staying more or less in front of you. We don't corrupt or bend the arms or get stuck up here. So the arms start in front of me here, and I swing the body backwards and forwards. You then start seeing the lovely arc I'm creating with that club head there. So that means that the club head doesn't strike the ground steeply, it sort of sweeps along it like this, like a pendulum to a clock. So if the club head is swinging like that, it means the strike is quite long along the ground. You see what I mean? So it's like a pendulum to a clock. It's that sweeping action where the club sort of slides along the ground. Now, if you do take a small amount of divot, that's absolutely fine. Now, where Les and Mary are up on the coast there, it's quite hard to take a divot on coastal courses unless they're very, very dusty and sandy. And so you will get a bit more of a bounce on the hard courses. And that's where that lovely sole helps you out. You can afford just to slide the club. So when I make a rehearsal swing, I hope you can hear this now when I make a rehearsal swing. With my 5-wood, 7-wood, my rescue wood, up. And you should just hear a skidding action on the ground. I'm going to make this a few times. I want to really I want to feel the emphasis of this. So you can hear a slight thud, but you should actually hear a skidding action there. And the way to think about your fairway woods is to get the club skidding as it hits the ground. I've said before that one of my favorite coaches to watch is Gary Player. And he really talks in sort of sounds. So you've got to get the club to zip. And he does this sort of action here. But he's a tremendous coach. He gets the message across. Our course is rock hard. Well, there you go, Mary. So that's why Mary Barlow just typed in there. She's up in Ely on the coast of Scotland there. Saying the course is rock hard. Of course, sand-based golf courses, plenty of heat and wind. It's the wind that dries out most golf courses anyway. They tend to grow the fairways a little longer because otherwise the grass gets stressed and you get down to mud. So all the links courses, and I'm sure Ely is right up there, will be very hard this time of year because of all the wind. And that's why it's super important to get the club sliding on the ground. Because whilst we think it's rock hard, the grass has got quite a bit of give in it. Even now, it's got quite a bit of give in it. Alrighty, so then if I move to the 7-wood here, which has more like 23 degrees of face angle, we then start seeing, of course, much more of the club sits underneath and they become much friendlier to hit. But unfortunately, with all that extra loft on the club, we lose a bit of distance. So we're going to talk about ball position shortly. And now we get into the very, very popular clubs, the rescue woods. Now, I've used a rescue wood for years. I absolutely love them. And I find them so versatile, so easy to hit. They have a limited use in terms of how far I'm going to hit it, but it gets me out of the rough grass more often than not. And the reason why we all love our rescue woods is, look at that, how much that club sits underneath the ball. All that lovely face angle there is right under the ball. And of course, that ball's going to jump up high. However, you've got to think of the difference between rescue woods and woods is a trade-off between consistency and distance. A wood, if I take my 7 wood here, is a lot longer, and the extra length in the club's shaft will create a hell of a lot more swing power. The difference in the head shape is the 7 wood's got a lot more hit behind it, whereas the rescue wood has a lot more hit underneath it. So a rescue was designed to get the ball high. So if you had a 5 rescue and a 5 wood, and they both had, let's say, for ease of argument, 20 degrees of face angle on, the 5 wood will definitely hit the ball further, but the 5 rescue will hit the ball higher per yard traveled. Okay, so if we then go back to Annika's bag, there has been a spell when Annika used several more woods than she did. I think she was up to 7 woods in total. And this wasn't an experiment for a game or two. This was for a reasonable amount of time. And she had a driver, 3 wood, 5 wood, 7 wood, and then I think 2, maybe 3 rescue woods, and then 8, 9 pitching wedge irons, and the rest were wedges and putter. I can't remember exactly what the constituency was, but it was something similar to that. And so she's not afraid to have loads of woods in the bag. Now, if you think for her, most of her career, she's had a minimum of 4 woods in the bag, and Tiger Woods had a minimum of 2, maximum of 3. It then starts telling you that as lady golfers, you should have many more woods in your bag than irons. And really, I wouldn't know many lady members who say to me, oh, my 3, 4, or 5 iron or my 6 iron is my favourite club. We all much prefer the lofted rescue woods. So let's talk about ball position now. If you keep in the image in your mind of the arc of the swing is smooth to the ground, then you won't get fearful of taking a little bit of a divot. Now, if I take my rescue wood here, stick the arrow on, ideally, with a rescue wood, I want the ball positioned in my stance so that when I'm swinging, the club is just descending into the ball. As part of that arc, I place the ball more or less just about dead center in my stance, maybe slightly off the right side, and that helps the club just have a little bit of descent to the arrow. And if that happens, the club comes down and the ball jumps up. So let's look at that. Remember I said this rescue wood here is a 6. It's got 30 degrees of face angle. If I place the ball a bit further back in the stance and the club leans forwards as a result, yes, I might lose 1 or 2 degrees of loft, but the club has got so much loft on it and the strike is still so much below the ball that it guarantees me a sweeter contact, but I still get plenty of height on the shot. So if I was going to start with my lofted rescue wood, and my lofted rescue wood's a 5 rescue, it's got like 23 degrees of loft on it, which for a man is a 5 rescue. It's quite a lofted club. I quite like popping it back in my stance because it just allows me to get a sweeter contact. I'll just do a bull's eye view again. Lots of bull's eye views today, ladies and Les. And Tom, as the club goes back in the stance, it just means I get a bit more of a strike at the back of the ball rather than underneath it, but I've still got tons and tons of loft angle there to jump the ball up in the air. So when we look at our rescue wood, as we do with our 3 wood, 5 wood, 7 wood, or rescue wood, we're looking for the club to slide or bounce. Get that sound? Slide or bounce. But with the rescue wood, it can go just a little bit back in the stance. Now, for my 7 wood, this is when we start putting the ball dead center in the stance now. And that will mean that the club head is at the lowest point of that arc. So it's just on the descent, makes the contact, and just on the ascent as it hits the ball, or just after it hits the ball. So in terms of your 7 wood, I would stand with your feet equal distance from where the ball is placed in your stance. And a great drill for doing that, one of my favorite drills, is simply to put the club down. So the ball is dead center of my stance here, like that. That will then mean the club shaft is vertical or even slightly forwards. I then set myself up. My last checkpoint is the butt of the club into my left hip socket. There. And that means as I make my swing, the club comes into its lowest point of the arc, collects the ball jumps up, and then I can follow through. Now, if you then look at the design of this club, the loft here is measured from a vertical point, where the shaft is vertical here. If I push the ball a little, sorry, push the shaft a little forwards like that, I only lose a couple of degrees. It's nothing to worry about. Now, then we get into my 5 wood. And this, for most of you, should be the most lofted club, so the least lofted club after the driver in your bag. It's your power club, and really the ratio of flight to roll with this club should be the most in the bag. You should have more roll per yard travel with this club than any other club. Now, what I would do with this is, instead of having the ball dead center in my stance, I'd move my left foot out and my right foot out just a little further. Because what I'm trying to do with this club here is just get that sole of the club sliding on the way up as it meets the ball. And then we're talking a small amount here now. But the whole point about these YouTube sessions that we're doing is that if I'm talking to, I don't know however many people I'm talking to today, the information isn't going to be the same for everybody. And so you've got to try and find something out of this. Where you say, well, hang on, in my game, he's right that I do tend to hit the ball a bit higher, a bit low, or I am struggling with my 5 wood. I think I put my ball in the middle here. I might try it further forward. So just try and find that one piece of information. And again, go back to that Jack Nicklaus quote I gave you a few weeks ago. How he has a gimmick, his words, he has a gimmick every single week just to get him through. Remarkable, isn't it? And hopefully throughout these sessions, if you just find 1 or 2 things which you can apply to your game when we all come back, then it's been worth it. So a 5 wood ball position for most of you ought to be just a little left of center. In order to help me do that, again, ball opposite the middle of my stance, left foot out a bit, right foot out a bit and a bit more. As ever, put the club into the left hip socket area here, and then my swing action, if you look at the arrow, is down and up. Down, slide along, and then up. And that way then, hopefully, you'll start to see a big difference between the various trajectories and flights and heights on the ball. So what is trajectory? What's height? Well, height is just measured in how many feet the ball traveled at its apex there. The best players in the world in the men's game hit the ball 100 foot high with every club in the bag. I'll explain that later. And the lady players are about 75 foot with every club in the bag. Now, again, this is how science has helped us out a lot. Why does I say that every club travels the same height? Well, it does. It just looks like the wedge does that. It looks like it's going really high. And the driver's going even higher. But it's going the same height, just on a different trajectory. So the angle which the ball flies at, the launch angle there, that it flies up at, they both apex at 100 foot for a men and so 75 to 80 foot for a lady professional. At club level, 50 foot, 50 to 60 foot is absolutely fine. So what we're trying to do there is trying to work out the difference between each club, and height is a massive, massive part of this. Oftentimes, a lady member will complain that her club has 3 or 4 clubs which seem to do the same thing. My 5 wood, my 7 wood, my rescues all seem to go more or less the same distance. Our job as professionals is to explain to you different positions that we place the ball to maximize the difference between the clubs. Otherwise, you might as well just play with 3 or 4 clubs, which would be bad for business, of course. In fact, ladies, you all need a new set when you come back. You know that. All right, and you, Les. All right, so I've now got a 3 wood in my hand. Now, if you are strong enough to play the 3 wood, you will have already accepted it's a club which has lots and lots of run on the ball. And for most lady golfers, believe it or not, the ratio of roll to flight is about 50-50. Say 75 yards in the air, 75 yards of roll for most times of the year. Not in the wintertime, obviously. Now look at that, very unfriendly. The club sitting at the back of the ball. I can't really get the loft of the club under the ball there. So if you are a 3 wood player, then it's critical we get some launch and height on the ball. And that will mean that the ball now should be positioned so we get a slight ascent as we hit the ball. The club just coming up just slightly. So in this position here, feet together, left foot out that much, right foot out twice as much. And that just helps the club either meet the ball at the very bottom of the arc, down here, or just slightly on the ascent. Now, with a 3-wood, again, it's probably my least successful club in my bag, the 3-wood. As I swing, listen to the sound. Oops, too much. That was better. Nice skid there. That's lovely. That's a lovely sound there. And what I'm trying to feel there is the soul of the club skidding and sliding on the ground. Now, if you do have the luxury of a garden or a carpet you can swing in at home, just get the feeling of that club skidding and sliding. Now, it's all very well being given advice, no, just try this and just try that. But the intention, I must assure you of this, the intention to do something with a club during the swing can often make it happen, and it can often make your technique change. If I say to you, I want you to swing and skid that club on the ground, with a little bit of practice and a few rehearsals, you might just find a way of doing it, and that would definitely be the correct way of doing it if the club's interacting with the ground, as I say. So going back to the Gary Player thing I was talking about earlier, because he talks in sounds and actions like that, people switch onto it. It's very easy to look at, so I like that. I've read loads of books over the years, and some of them are so complicated and deep with information, you don't really know what they're talking about. Okay. So, if you then look at the difference between a rescue wood and a normal wood, rescue woods are more playable, and they get the ball higher. Fairway woods, normal woods, inverted commas normal woods, are more powerful, but only if you get consistency out of them. Now, if you hit your rescuers consistently, over the course of 12 months of golf, you will have got more distance than you would have done with the woods, the normal woods. And that's because consistency always beats ego. Now, I've done it, I've seen it loads of times. I've been, someone's come for a custom fit for equipment. And they start off by hitting the driver. They want to try, I definitely want to try the new TaylorMade. It looks so sort of powerful. First few shots go left and right. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't going to do them any good. And then they bomb one, and it goes miles. And it's, oh, that's the one I want. I said, well, you need consistency. Oh, no, I love this club. Oh, it'll go miles. I can soon work on the consistency. If a club isn't hitting the ball squarely, consistently enough, and getting the right elevation, you're going to lose distance apart from on the ego shot. So what we're looking for all the time is repeatability to gain distance. You then know that when you go and stand on the par threes or you're in a certain position on the course, you can say, well, I often find myself in this position here. I often use that club and it works out well for me. That's true control in terms of understanding your woods. So if I then move to, let's go with 7-wood here. And I'm going to hit a couple of shots now on the screen here. And I'm going to try and swing at about 60 miles an hour, which would be quite common for a lady member with a fairway wood, that sort of range. Right, well, I'm not showing off now. Let's look at that. I said I was going to go for 60 miles an hour. 60.2. I wish I had that much control of my normal game, I assure you, which I don't. So I carried that ball there, 83.5 yards, and it went a total of 110. Now, understanding your distances is absolutely key in this game. And the better the player, the more they understand them. What I'm going to show you now is if I swing at 60 miles an hour, there's a limit to how fast 60 miles an hour can hit the ball. My second computer down here is called my optimizer. And the optimizer is saying, you should just be able to see it, that I hit it 84 in the air, but it's saying here the optimal possibility is 104. Now, if I sort of hit it 83 in the air and got another, 27 yards of roll, it's now saying that if you hit 104 plus another, say, 35 yards of roll, you should get 140 yards out of the 5-wood. 7-wood, I beg your pardon. So the point of what I'm illustrating to you there, really, is that every mile an hour you swing at can only produce a certain amount of yardage. Now, the computer works on the data given to it every single day from Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Annika Sorenstam, whoever. They all use TrackMan. The TrackMan has its own Wi-Fi, and that Wi-Fi data gets sent every single day to the supercomputer in Denmark. They then work out what every single mile an hour is capable of. Now, on that shot there, I didn't strike it very well, even though I swung at the number I said I wanted to swing at. But I lost 20 yards of distance. That's down to the strike of the shot. So when you play, it's really key that you do get some feel for distance of how far you hit your 7-wood, your rescue wood, and what have you, and work that out over time. But be accepting that there's only a certain amount of clubhead speed that will produce those distances. Now, when you do come back and you fancy having a go on the TrackMan, it's a fantastic thing, and we mustn't be scared of technology. I put off buying the TrackMan for probably 18 months. I thought, well, is it too complicated? Is it too technical? And then the more and more people use it, the better they become as players. And understanding your distance is a big part of that. Okay, so if I did the same thing now with a rescue, I'm going to move down to a 6 rescue. I'm going to try and swing at 60 miles an hour again. Let's see if I can get lucky twice. Now, isn't that interesting? I only got 52 miles an hour there of swing speed. So I tried to swing the same, but of course my rescue was a lot weaker. So I need to put a bit more bang into this one now. I just want to try and get an idea of how much distance this club is capable of. 55, in case you were wondering. Okay. And this shows you now the difference between good and bad strikes. So I got to 58.3 there. I did get lucky in my first attempt. So 58.3. That produced a carry of 99 yards for a total distance of 109. So you can see now there's a much tighter ratio of roll compared to how many yards traveled. I carried that ball further in the air, but it had less roll in it. Now on my optimizer down here, I did strike that one nicely. I carried it 99 yards. The optimizer's saying, well, you could have only hit it 103 yards anyway. That's the maximum from that swing speed there. So the clever part about all this is that we then start working with saying, well, look, at your swing speed, if we've optimized that, we've got you swinging properly, there's a limit to how far you'll hit each club. Let's work out what the potential distances are for those clubs. Alrighty, Barbara Lord asked me a question regarding sloping lies. I have covered it actually in some of my smaller videos that I've done, but I want to cover it again today for you because it's very pertinent when we're talking about the loft of a club. Because if the sloping lie we're hitting upwards, Mother Nature determines that the club shaft is going to lean backwards, the strike's going to be more on the ascent, the ball will come out much higher and have much less roll. So the first thing I do whenever I'm on a sloping lie, and I don't like slopy golf courses anyway, being brought up on the coast, I like them bone hard and flat. But if I go and play slopy courses, I never particularly like them because the strike is so much harder to make consistent. And also every sloping lie is different. There's no sort of consistency there. So if we're going up a hill, and 16 is a good example of this. 16 is a very long hole, but it's a long hole with a slope on it. The closer you get to that hole, the more uphill you're going. And so the first thing you do is select a club, which will allow for that extra height you're going to get on the ball. Second thing is, because I'm tilting back now with the slope, I need to move my ball back in my stance. And you can hear, I think a few minutes ago I was talking about different ball positions there. And we do change the ball position around. When we're going up a slope, get that ball back in the stance a little bit because we're leaning backwards this way a little bit with the slope to get the ball back in the stance. Now, I assure you those two things will probably cover most of the problems you're going to encounter on a slope. Don't fuss too much about the ball going left and right because I think from what I've seen of amateur golf, I know what the science is, but the practicality is it's a 60-40 chance of the ball going left if we're going up a slope. But at 60-40, I would just say try and get a decent contact on the ball and get the ball back in the stance. If you're going down a slope, we're leaning this way now. So now you've really got to put loads of loft in the club because a slope which is going downhill, which affects the stance, you can see even with this 30-degree rescue wood here, I do lose an awful lot of height on the ball. Now, because the slope is high up here, again, we put the ball back in the stance. So if you select the right club and put the ball back in the stance for both those positions when the ball's going downhill, then trust me, that's 90% of the battle. The game is hard enough off a flat lie, let alone off sloping lies. So we can't put too much complication into the technique. Now, another one of Jack Nicklaus's famous phrases, or famous thoughts was when he's playing into the wind, he makes no adjustments, and he makes no adjustments when he's playing downwind. his view being that what he loses playing into the wind over the course of a season, he will gain going downward in the course of a season. So don't try and complicate the swing by making too many adjustments for the different winds there. So, like I said, the game's hard off the flat. When we go into sloping lines, and Mary's just typed in the 5th hole, then don't make too many adjustments there, because we simply don't have enough in the memory bank, nor do we practice enough to make those adjustments. So the 5th hole, Mary, great example there. All the way downhill, loads of loft. The ball, I need loads of loft to counteract the ball coming out low. But of course, the ball's going to bounce and run lower as well. So you're going to get much more kick on the ball. So that extends right through to your wedges and all the way through to your fairway woods as well. If the ball's higher than your feet, up here, simply hold the club lower down and try and make the best swing you can. Now, because the ball's higher, that ball will go left. And it's virtually impossible to stop the ball from going left. If I have a real slice with the ball, I often get to stand on the slope and swing like this to encourage a swing which hits the ball left of target. Now, if you are a bit of a slice with the ball, then making a few swings like a baseball bat around the body here is a great way of softening the swing to get the right strike on the ball. Because a slicer typically comes and slices the ball rather than swinging around the body back here. If the ball's below the level of your feet, it's a nightmare, especially when you're tall, long legs like me. I then really squat down to get myself down to the ball and make a swing. Now, because the ball is further away from me, I have to swing down to get it and really make a forceful effort to go up and down to get to the ball. And for me, that means an awful lot of knee bend and curtsy as I come down into the ball. So really, I would always say ball position on the uphiller and the downhiller, back in the stance and just lean with the slope, but select plenty of club. When the ball's above your feet, boy, you're going to say hello to a hook. That ball is going left, left, left. Above your feet here, way over there. Below your feet, you're just going to try and make a contact because the ball's further away from you now. Alrighty. So if I look at what I've written on my notes here, your driver is indiscriminate distance. Get the ball as far as possible. Peg it up nice and high. If you then look at your 3-wood, if you do use a 3-wood, lots of roll on that ball's total distance. So the ratio of roll to flight is not quite 50-50, but it won't be far off. 5-wood should become most lady golfers' most powerful club after their driver. And then your 7-wood is designed for height, as are your rescue woods. Helen's just saying, I grew up, of course, in Saddleworth, around the side of a hill. Needed one leg longer than the other to play at all. That's my idea of a living hell for a golf course. It's a windy, because hills are windy, obviously, a windy side hill golf course. And whenever we used to go inland as kids and go and play in the Manchester area, courses around there were just, I just found it so difficult. But of course, it's just one of the many beauties of the game. There's different skills for different courses, but we all have our preferences. Mine are definitely windswept, bleak, bone hard, barren, lunar landscapes with loads of sand and dust. Alrighty, I hope I've covered plenty of information there for you. I started today by illustrating how difficult it is to hit a driver off the deck. I mean, not the world's most surprising start or a piece of information there, but it just shows that where loft plays a massive part, as does head design with the woods. And then I talked about your ball position and the impact of loft on those ball positions. Yeah, wrong side of the pen lines though, isn't it? Saddleworth. Oh, just east of Manchester. Yeah, it's still Yorkshire, isn't it? Anyway, any more questions that I can cover with you? Anything you want to talk about regarding fairway woods and rescue woods? I'll give you a minute or two. And again, just listen to the sound I make as I skid the club. That lovely skidding sound. And that's the optimum way for the club to interact with the ground. All right, folks. Well, thank you very, very much for tuning in. I'm doing a special session for seniors tomorrow. I'm going to redo a little bit of what I talked about. Come on, Gene, send me a swing in. Send me a video of you swinging in your garden. I'm going to recover a little bit of ground that I talked about last time with the seniors, and I've also got some fresh content for you as well. But it's basically a way of how the body should work as we age and the positions that the best players in the world get themselves into as their swings get a bit tighter, or they're dealing with injury, or just the effects of years of hitting golf balls. And then Friday, I'm doing a short game clinic. That's a fresh thing I'm doing Friday. So as ever, I wish you all great health. I hope you're all keeping active, mentally, physically, spiritually, and looking after each other. My extreme pleasure to all of you. So thank you very, very much indeed. And God bless you all. Cheerio.